You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Like many local police agencies, the West Alabama Narcotics Task Force receives federal grant money to make drug arrests. This year, the task force has worked hard to combat the drug menace by conducting a record-setting raid of college kids who smoke pot. Then, the commander of the task force was found guilty of stealing $125,000 in seized drug funds for himself. In February, the West Alabama Narcotics Task Force completed a 2-month-long investigation at the University of Alabama. One witness described teams of, quote, officers wearing bulletproof vests with handguns strapped to their thigh, end quote, arresting 74 people, including 61 students, mostly for charges of sale and possession of small amounts of marijuana. The university newspaper, the Crimson White, reported the bust as a record number of arrests in one operation, according to Tuscaloosa Police Chief Steve Anderson. Those students all face, quote, sanctions up to and including expulsion, end quote, explained University of Alabama President Dr. Judy Bonner in a statement on the arrests. Now, as we've explained numerous times, the arrest for marijuana is usually the least troublesome aspect of a bust. It's being in the system as a so-called drug criminal that creates most of the problems for cannabis consumers. About half the people netted in that record bust in February are still in limbo, yet to see their cases resolved. Almost all of the people arrested had their names printed in the local newspaper story about the bust. We don't know how many of them were expelled, suspended, or lost a scholarship. All who are convicted will lose any federal student aid. Many of them will have to check the convicted of a crime box when they seek employment, and others will face discrimination when the Google search of their name brings up that article and their mugshot photo. Those mugshots, by the way, tell us an important fact about these marijuana arrests in black and white. Literally. Our recent survey of simple marijuana possession arrests in 2013 on a popular mugshot website shows almost twice as many black faces as non-black faces arrested in Tuscaloosa County. However, there are more than twice as many white people as black people living in the county, and both groups use marijuana at roughly the same rates. The marijuana arrests feed the grant machine that keeps paramilitary groups like the West Alabama Narcotics Task Force funded. In 2004, Tuscaloosa News reported that the task force began in 1988 with a $100,000 grant, which had to be matched by $100,000 in matching taxpayer funds from the city council. Then Police Chief Ken Swindle, yes, really, bragged, quote, it hasn't cost the city a dime since, end quote, as the task force was receiving a $310,000 grant. Swindle explained that the 2004 grant required the city to pitch in 1/4 that amount in matching funds. That $78,000 came from cash and assets seized from earlier marijuana arrests. In 2011, another $210,000 grant funded the task force, with another $70,000 in asset forfeitures to match. Simply put, these grant matching funds incentivize drug task forces to make arrests, to seize money, to make money. Not necessarily stop drugs. The more arrests they make, the more money they take, the bigger grants they get, and the more arrests they have to keep making to keep the money flowing. In 2011, that was over 1,500 mostly black people arrested by the task force in just one Alabama county. In 2013, that meant sending armed teams of cops into college dorms to roust pot smokers. When $1 in Seizure gets the task force another $4 in grants, eventually someone can't resist the temptation of all that free money. The FBI began an investigation of the task force's books back in December of 2012. Coincidentally, around the same time the task force was sending informants in to snitch on college kids smoking pot at the University of Alabama. In May, the former commander of the task force, Jeff Snyder, was found guilty of embezzling at least $125,000 of the funds the task force seized between June 2010 and June 2012. According to a plea agreement that would get him just 18 months in prison, Snyder was simply, quote, pocketing some or all of the funds seized during various arrests and then failing to correctly account for those funds, end quote. The indictment doesn't include the funds seized from those college kids in the record bust in February 2013, but even if Commander Hand in the cookie jar didn't grab some for himself, who knows how many of the arresting cops did? According to the records, there was just $9,498 seized from just 12 out of the 74 people in the bust, 10 of them University of Alabama students who lost a total of $8,636. None of the rest of the 74 arrested seems to have a record of anything seized but pot and paraphernalia, and the Tuscaloosa Police Department won't comment. The grant funding machine continues with another report this week of, quote, an overactive week for drug arrests, end quote, in Tuscaloosa. At least 20 people were jailed, with the most significant charges relating to marijuana trafficking by two of the men. The other 18 were charged with petty crimes like possession and drug paraphernalia. The task force leadership refused to comment on the sudden surge in marijuana arrests. This is the story of just one drug task force in one county in America. There are 258 more of them in this country just waiting to spend over $200 million in taxpayer funds to take down the cannabis consumer who boosts their arrest figures for the next grant application.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Toker Talk Radio is next, live at 4 p.m. and replays at 7 p.m. Pacific. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.